Welcome, everybody. I am Steve Call. I'm the Dean of the Graduate School of Journalism here at Columbia, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the 81st Annual Mariah Moore's Cabot Prizes, the oldest awards in international journalism. Each year, these prizes honor outstanding journalists who are working in or writing about Latin America, or the Americas more broadly. Tonight's winners are journalists who have dedicated their careers to understanding and reporting on often underreported, sometimes difficult terrain across our hemisphere, from Mexico to Nicaragua to our southern border here in the United States and Venezuela and beyond. Welcome to all of you, to all of our winners, to their guests. I'd also like to recognize some special folks who are here with us tonight. Please hold your applause till everyone's been recognized. First, I'd like to welcome members of the Cabot family. Your leadership and continued support has enabled this great institution at Columbia to thrive across many decades, and of course, to lift up and to honor and recognize courageous reporting throughout the Americas. Thank you. If you'd stand for a minute, if you're here. Next, I'd like to welcome past Cabot medalists. I know there are several here tonight, members of the Cabot board. All of you together give your time and expertise to ensuring the high quality of the judging each year and to make sure that we continue to think anew about the great journalism that is being produced in so many diverse places in our hemisphere. So thank you for your time, for your integrity, and for your dedication to these prizes. You know, it's really a great privilege for Columbia University to host this institution. I know I speak on behalf of President's Office and many faculty across the university in just reflecting on how important it's been for Columbia, but also for our profession, to be able to continuously, over so many different periods of our shared history in the Americas, to think together about what great journalism looks like and to honor the courage, often, that's required to bring it into the world. I think this year it doesn't take deep observation to understand that in ways that are both good and troubling, journalism in the Americas is bound by a common challenge of authoritarian leaders who seek to delegitimize the press, who seek to confuse the public with propaganda and with the stoking of polarized politics. I'm not sure in my lifetime that there has ever been a period of such convergence of political challenge to journalists in the United States and in the Americas writ large. And at the same time, you see in all across our region very powerful responses by journalists to these leaders, to these provocations, to these attempts to delegitimize the function of journalism in open societies. I don't pretend to say that the courage and the risk required by American journalists yet equals that required in countries like Mexico or Venezuela, or even increasingly in places like Brazil, but the challenges are common, and so is the way that these attacks on a free press have motivated journalists to stand up for their often constitutionally protected function and to demonstrate to the public through their own work why journalism matters, why it is essential to healthy, democratic, and open societies. So let's hope that we don't have these problems in common for too much longer, but I'm delighted to be able to celebrate those who continued under great pressure to do extraordinary work. Before we get to the winners, I wanted to mention a couple of responses to these times in Latin America that I'm particularly admiring of, and that both of them have connections either to Colombia or to the Cabot Awards, and they represent this idea that there really is a counterpunch underway in our profession, despite the very noisy challenges we face. The first is the founding of the Latin American Center for Investigative Journalism, or CLIP, which is underway right now, led by a team that includes 3 Cabot Prize winners: Maria Teresa Ronderos, well known to many of you, a judge and chair of our jury for many years; Marina Walker Guevara, Emiliana Garcia, Natalia Viana, and from our own faculty at the J School, Giannina Sanghini. These are investigative reporters who have trained and supported colleagues for many years across the Americas, and now they've banded together. It's like one of those Avengers movies to create a very powerful transnational center for investigative reporting. They're up and running. They've already published their first piece in 15 different media outlets under the rubric of Transnationals of Faith, which is about the role that evangelical groups are playing in reshaping politics and society in the Americas. The other one I'd like to draw attention to is a project from a former colleague of mine, Alejandro Ibarra Chaul, who was a recent graduate at the J School and worked for a year as a postgraduate researcher in my office. And with support from the Brown Institute at Columbia's J School, which is an incubator of innovative journalism projects and storytelling projects that take advantage of new technologies. With that grant, she's created an archive that she calls Democracy Fighters, and it does aggregate and preserve the works of all of the journalists who have been killed in Mexico since 2000, 92 journalists. Not only do we remember their names, but we remember their work. And to create this archive, I think, is a very powerful response to the pressure that journalists face in Mexico, where Alejandra is from. She just launched this in Mexico City the other night. It was an extraordinary success. I think all of us at the J School, but especially myself, just super proud of this. Congratulations, Alejandra. She's here tonight, too. So now it's my privilege to introduce our first speaker, who is the chair of the Cabot jury. The jury is tasked, of course, with selecting our medalists each year. Our chair comes to us from the David Rockefeller Center for Latin American Studies at Harvard, where she's the editor of Revista, the Harvard Review of Latin America. She was a foreign correspondent for almost 2 decades in Colombia, Nicaragua, and Germany, writing for the Miami Herald, Time, and other publications. She covered the Sandinista Revolution, the war in El Salvador, the fall of the Berlin Wall, and she's written books about Guatemala and Colombia. She's a professor of journalism and a graduate of our Columbia Journalism School. So please welcome June Carolyn Ehrlich. June.
Welcome to this joyous ceremony. Last year I spoke about speaking truth to power, and that is as true this year as it ever was. But a good friend of mine here present said I didn't smile during my whole speech. So I was reading, looking at some of the political cartoons that one of our medalists, Pedro Molina, had created, and I just started laughing uncontrollably. And I thought, journalism is also about joy. It's about that joy of meeting the deadline. It's about the joy of getting that scoop. It's about the joy of making a difference. And I think of another of our medalist winners tonight, Marcela Turati, who, in the face of the death of so many journalists, just 12 even since last December, manages to keep a smile on her face and manages to find the joy in keeping other journalists safe and helping them to work collaboratively to investigate. I think of Angela Kocherga, who covers the border, who covers information, immigration, with such sensitivity and finds those perfect examples, the joy of getting those perfect examples. I think of our colleagues from Armando.info who managed to get past the barrier of censorship in Venezuela. What could be more joyous than doing that, than getting through? And I think of the wonderful space of El New York Times in Espanol that was an intellectual space for Latin American and Latin Americanists that did much more than translate. It was an intellectual space. And as many of you know, the El New York Times in Espanol was suspended, allegedly for economic reasons. And I almost thought, I'm not going to talk about joy here. I can't talk about joy. And then I was talking to a former Cabot medalist. I mean, once a Cabot medalist, always a Cabot medalist, from 2016, Oscar Martinez. And he said to me, you know, El New York Times in Espanol and Boris Muñoz have fostered a generation of Latin American opinion writers who now understand that writing opinions isn't throwing names and insults, that it's closely reasoned arguments based on facts. And that made me think that is joy. That is joy that all our medalists tonight and our citation winners, they have the joy of fostering a new generation of journalists, some of them at this school right now. And that's reason to celebrate. So come celebrate with me.
Thank you, June. Now I'm pleased to introduce Earnest Sotomayor. He's the Dean of Student Affairs and the Director of Latin American Initiatives at the Journalism School. He started his career as a reporter in Texas at the El Paso Herald-Post and the Dallas Times-Herald, and went on to become an award-winning reporter and editor at New York Newsday, where he assisted in the breaking news coverage of 2 Pulitzer Prize-winning series. He joined the J School in 2005, helped to create our Career Services Center, and has done so many roles at our school to strengthen both our place in the world and the experience of our students. So please welcome Dean Ernest Sotomayor.
Buenas noches y nuevamente bienvenida a la Universidad de Colombia. Primero un agradecimiento a todos por estar aquí con nosotros en esta celebración del trabajo de estas periodistas tan maravillosas, a quienes honramos en esta noche. Gracias. Disculpe unas palabras en inglés. 5 years ago, Dean Call gave me an assignment, quite undefined at the time, which was to expand the footprint of the Columbia Graduate School of Journalism in Latin America. He was very explicit. This was not intended to raise funds for us to raise money, but simply to impact the already very high quality of journalism that was being practiced throughout the continent. The first step, he suggested, would be a workshop, a course in advanced investigative journalism techniques for experienced reporters. So I prepared a budget plan, I prepared a plan for a course entirely in Spanish, and soon I was touring America Latina to meet with journalists and educators to gauge interest in our idea. I traveled to Bogota, to Rio de Janeiro, to Sao Paulo, Lima, Ciudad de Mexico, and later in Santiago and Buenos Aires. Everyone I spoke to endorsed our idea. They liked it. But they told me such a course would never work. No one, they said, could find the time or the resources to attend. In March of this year, we held that 2-week course in Cartagena in Colombia for the 3rd consecutive year with 17 journalists from 10 countries. We've now trained 45 journalists from 15 countries, including República Dominicana, Honduras, El Salvador, Venezuela, Uruguay, and others. Several of them are from here, are in this room tonight. Many of these journalists, using skills that we taught them, have collaborated with each other to do major cross-border investigations that have won global awards. Stories they started at our curso. We're going to be expanding that course, as you heard, next summer in collaboration with CLIP and with the participation of Chicas Poderosas in an ongoing partnership that we have with Fundación Cabot in Colombia. And in January, we're going to be holding a special version of that course in Chile for Chilean journalists. So I think there is interest. I think there is a way that people can participate. Interestingly, most of the journalists that have come to our courses have been from small digital news sites, almost all of them run by women that have made giant sacrifices in their journalists to our courses. So we're very cognizant of that, and we're very proud of that. But that's just the start of our work, which supports the type of journalism that we are celebrating here tonight. As journalism in America Latina has evolved, so has our work and so has our mission. We're teaching the use of data and computer science as reporting tools, how media companies, especially digital platforms, can work in collaboration. We're teaching not just reporting skills, but also management and change leadership as economic crisis spreads throughout the continent, as journalism faces greater threats to press freedom by governments in Mexico and Venezuela and Brazil, Argentina, Nicaragua, Ecuador, Bolivia, and other places. We're addressing how media companies can respond. Support from the Cabot organization, in fact, is going to allow us this year to provide 4 scholarships to 4 journalists from Latin America into our Salzburger Executive Leadership Program. We're considering proposals already to conduct more safety training, modernize journalism at curriculum at more universities in Latin America, to teach new multimedia skills to broadcasters in places like Brazil, to promote ways to better protect press rights in repressive regimes, and other projects in collaboration with other schools and organizations. I've largely overseen these initiatives, but increasingly this is a school-wide effort. Our dean has been there several times now with more than a dozen faculty members who have participated in our programs. It's more than just me. We have departments like our alumni relations who are providing support for these efforts as well. Next month, we're going to be sending 2 professors to Chile as part of our years-long series of workshops with Universidad de Diego Portales and Colombia's Global Center in Santiago to do workshops in the Future of Journalism series on fighting misinformation campaigns and covering climate change just ahead of the COP25 conference, one of the biggest issues facing our world today. Next month, we're going to be sending 2 more professors to other locations. In Sao Paulo, I just came back from our 3rd annual International Journalism Symposium with ESPM University and consulted on the curriculum on another school that's launching a journalism program. 2 weeks, Janina Signina and I will be in Mexico City at the Colpin Investigative Reporting Conference. We'll be teaching investigative skills there. Each summer, I join Fundación para el Periodismo in Bolivia with the European Journalism Center's support to teach journalism to high schools, to college students, and we award investigative grants to Bolivian journalists. $1,000, $500, $800 can go a long way, and that's a great impact that we're making. In the fall, we exchange students with Clarín in Buenos Aires, which hosts our graduates in internships while we train their students from the Maestría Universidad de San Andrés in reporting skills here. Journalists in Panama can now access public government data because of a graduate in our school developed a special program, El Tabulario, through the Brown Institute to make it possible to get the information needed to hold that government accountable. Las iniciativas solo han empezado y hacemos mucho más. No les puedo decir todo porque no tengo todo el tiempo. Hemos contado con la ayuda y el apoyo de muchas personas en esta sala para mejorar el periodismo. Comenzamos con ustedes en las historias que cuentan contra viento y marea y siempre con muchas ganas. Y nos complace para ser parte de esto. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Ernie. And now for tonight's awards. We'll begin with the Cabot Special Citation from Armando.info, Ewald Scharfenberg, and Joseph Polacek. Would you please come to the stage? This... In addition to the gold medals for lifetime achievement, the Cabot jury also searches for journalistic accomplishments from the most recent year that have had an extraordinary impact on the region. In Venezuela, a group of courageous investigative journalists published the news site Armando.info in one of the most hostile environments to a free press. They've been harassed, threatened, and censored. 4 of them were forced into exile last year. With their colleagues, they continue covering the political and humanitarian crisis in Venezuela, exposing corruption, human rights violations, and environmental crimes. Despite the obstacles they face, Armando.info's journalists have produced more than 400 investigative pieces in the past 5 years, including transnational projects, often in collaboration with independent media from other Latin American countries. For the relentless efforts of its journalists and their contributions to our understanding of the dire situation in Venezuela, the board selects Armando.info as the recipient of a 2019 Special Citation. Congratulations to all of you.
Buenas noches a todos, ¿me escuchan? ¿Sí? Muy bien, gracias. Bueno, mi nombre es Ewald Scharfenberg, aquí con mis colegas Joseph Polisuk, Roberto Denis y Alfredo Mesa, somos parte del equipo fundador de Armando.info. Y bueno, a diferencia del profesor Sotomayor, les voy a pedir disculpas por anticipado, son por mis palabras en mal inglés que siguen a continuación. Good evening. There is a well-known chapter in Venezuelan history that in 1830, Simón Bolívar, el Libertador, our national hero, after having fought 79 great battles to liberate what would later be 6 nations of South America, was near death at just 47 years of age. In his last days in the Colombian city of Santa Marta, he said one sentence that summed up the frustration of seeing in his sunset years the work of a lifetime drowned by internal struggles. I have been plowing in the sea, he said. He famously said. As you can see, among Venezuelans, the tradition of going into exile to lament the futility of our efforts is long and old. It's an irony. 2 years ago, 4 journalists of Armando.info had to leave Venezuela to prevent the judicial power of Nicolás Maduro from shutting us up and probably sending us to prison. 3 of us also ended up in exile in Colombia as the liberator. Of course, it is not my intention to compare our personal misadventures with the fate Simon Bolivar met in that same country, with such a colossal legacy. But what is also colossal is the crisis that now faces Venezuela, perhaps more serious than that faced by Bolivar himself during the War of Independence. The economy has fallen to levels that date back some 50 years, a collapse that many specialists say is the largest ever recorded in a country not at war. According to UNHCR, 4.5 million Venezuelans, 1/6 of the population, have emigrated to other lands. Democratic institutions have been swept from the map. Just in the press sector alone, almost 70 is the figure, newspapers have stopped circulating since Maduro came to power. In the midst of this crisis of apocalyptic proportions, and yet not fully recognized by the rest of the world, the work we do sometimes seems insignificant. The pointless effort of those who try to stop a tsunami with the palm of their hand. There are also often those who warn us that investigative journalism, like the kind we practice, barely interests those who are just too busy trying to survive. So we see this distinction, the Maria Morse Cabot, as an endorsement of our conviction that investigative journalism, well documented and with international standards, has real impact, one that benefits the community. Sometimes we feel alone and discouraged because of the never-ending attacks by the government and by social media. This award reminds us of our other following, the anonymous user who emails a tip for El Señor Armando. But above all, we take it as a recognition of the fact that we continue, like our colleagues in the newsroom in Caracas and so many others who today cover stories on the ground, to do what we know how to do, journalism. In times when journalism ceases to be just a job to make a living or even a public service, and it becomes a conviction. With those colleagues, we want to share this recognition, especially with our colleagues who remain in Caracas and carry out our Armando.info operation in increasingly challenging conditions. We may have plowed in the sea, but today, being here in front of all of you, shows us that all the effort has been worth it. For this reason, we would like to thank the jury of the Maria Morse Cabot Prize, as well as the directors of the School of Journalism of Columbia University for this special citation. Thank you.
And now for our 4 gold medal winners for lifetime achievement. Angela Kocherga, could you come up to the stage, please? Angela's career embodies the core mission of these prizes, which honor journalists who make significant contributions to inter-American understanding. She has made it her mission across her career to tell the stories of the borderlands where the United States and Mexico meet. For more than 30 years, she's chronicled these stories on television, on the radio, and print, sharing her deep knowledge of the border's ambiguity, its complexity from Texas to Tijuana. Nearly 2 decades ago, she was one of the first journalists to introduce viewers to the young Central Americans who risked their lives atop the train called the Beast, riding north with dreams of finding safety in the United States. When drug wars erupted across the line and in Mexico, in northern Mexico, she went where other reporters feared to go, explaining the cartel's feuds and revealing their victims' sorrows, their families, and their experiences. She set the record straight when politicians tried to dehumanize a new surge of migrants, showing that there were often families in desperate need of asylum and protection. Angela Kocherga, for an accomplished career dedicated to reporting on the US-Mexico border and for furthering inter-American understanding, the trustees of Columbia University are honored to present you with the Maria Moore's Cabot Gold Medal. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. So honored to be here. Muy buenas noches. Thank you, Columbia University. Thank you, Cabot family. And thank you, jury, for this prestigious prize. And thank you, June Ehrlich. Congratulations to the fellow medalists. I'm humbled to be among you and the many who came before me who represent the best of the Americas. I stand on the shoulders of so many colleagues, from television news directors to newspaper editors who believed in me, to the talented photographers who worked alongside me on both sides of the border. And I would not be here tonight without Alfredo Corchado, my significant other. Thank you, Alfredo, for your love and support, for sharing my passion for journalism and quest for truth. And Connie DeGrazia, my best friend since 9th grade. That's a long time. Thank you for your unwavering support and encouragement. I treasure our enduring friendship. Most of all, I'm grateful to my beautiful, brilliant mother, who is no longer with us but continues to inspire me every day. She raised me, my sister Mita, and my brother Peter on her own with some help from our grandmother, known as Gaga, the original Gaga, I might add. My mother's role in inspiring me to become a journalist cannot be overstated. She understood the power of words, the power of story, and made sure as a child that I always had a book in my hand. She encouraged my curiosity, my empathy for others, and instilled in me a sense of justice. My mother, an Irish American native of Chicago, also raised me on both sides of the border, from Mexico City, where I was born, to Guadalajara, and later the Rio Grande Valley of Texas. That experience as a child had a profound effect on who I am today, bilingual, bicultural, binational. Not either or, but more. It helped me achieve my goal as a journalist of serving as a bridge of understanding between the US and Mexico and beyond. I'm also very grateful to those who have entrusted me to tell their stories. The so many in Mexico have taught me about resilience and strength as they face what seems like an endless drug war. The tenacious people of Cuba, Honduran children fleeing gangland violence, the determined mothers of Guatemala, women looking north for that last chance. Today, you'll find the Latin America I've covered on the US-Mexico border. Cubans, Central Americans, Venezuelans, Brazilians, Nicaraguans, and again, a rising number of Mexicans, all seeking asylum amid a wave of harsh crackdowns. In the US, they've endured family separation and squalid, overcrowded holding cells. And now thousands wait in Mexico for their cases to be decided in the US immigration courts. I live just a few minutes away from the border wall, and the place where a well-armed U.S. militia also set up camp, dressed in camouflage, waiting to stop Central American families who cross the border seeking asylum. I must admit now, as I report on mass murder, mass migration, and the humanitarian crisis on the border, I still feel like a bridge, but perhaps a broken bridge, or at least one badly in need of repair. Yes, these are dark days on the border. I dedicate this award to the people of the borderlands who have demonstrated resilience, strength, and courage. And let me end with just 3 quick things I never imagined I'd see despite my long journalism career. All happened in the last few months. First, Mexico's president, under a U.S. tariff threat, deployed thousands of National Guard members to his country's both borders. Rather than fighting organized crime, those soldiers are now chasing down migrant parents and children who are hoping to reach the U.S. so they can get to Border Patrol agents and turn themselves in and ask for asylum. Secondly, after years of covering massacres in Mexico, especially Ciudad Juarez, I found myself just 2 months ago reporting on a mass killing in El Paso, my hometown, at a Walmart on a Saturday morning. There is little doubt El Paso was targeted because of who we are and where we live. The alleged gunman drove nearly 700 miles, more than 10 hours, to the border, where he told police he came to kill Mexicans and stop the Hispanic invasion. We've heard this before at political rallies and in a barrage of presidential tweets, warning of an invasion by so-called criminals pouring across the border. This attack came from within. And finally, after raising the alarm about the dangers journalists in Mexico face, our colleagues, I never thought I'd find myself this evening at the Columbia Journalism School worrying about the need to protect the First Amendment and the lives of journalists in this country. So what do we do as journalists? Label purveyors of fake news the enemy of the people, targeted and violent videos? Just like our colleagues throughout the Americas, we must keep fighting back with facts, digging deeper, working harder to hold the powerful accountable. Because words matter, words have consequences, and the truth is still our best defense. Thank you. Muchísimas gracias y buenas noches.
Pedro Molina, please come to the stage. For more than 2 decades, Pedro Molina has been one of Nicaragua's sharpest observers and has offered a critical view of the relationship between the United States and Latin America. With his witty humor and extraordinary artistic talent, he's an authentic example of speaking truth to power in unconventional ways. Public figures in Nicaragua and abroad have felt the bite of his cartoons, which are published around the world. Today, in the face of hardline governments around the region and abroad, in fostering an increasingly hostile environment for journalism and satire, Molina still uses his pen and his wit to take aim not only at the repressive government of President Daniel Ortega, but at human rights abuses throughout the Americas and the world. Pedro Molina, for your vision and for effectively demonstrating the power of satire and cartooning as a way of opening up our minds and our understanding across the Americas. The trustees of Columbia University are honored to present you with the Mariah Moore's Cabot Gold Medal. Congratulations.
Muchas gracias. Buenas noches. Good evening, everyone. I'm honored to be here tonight receiving the Maria Moore's Cabot Award. I'd like to thank God for giving me the inspiration and the basic skills to pursue this wonderful form of communication. My family for their support through all these years. My editors, the good and the bad ones, who taught me in one way or another to have confidence in my work, and of course the Cabot jury and Columbia University for this prestigious prize. As a practitioner of independent journalism in Nicaragua, I find this award has a special meaning because it comes in the middle of one of the worst times for free press in the history of my country. Journalists have been incarcerated, exiled, and killed. Our newsrooms have been seized by the forces of the dictatorship, and independent radio and TV stations have been taken off the air. Newspapers are suffering an embargo from the government, forbidding them from getting paper and ink and everything else they need to print. Just a few weeks ago, the second largest newspaper in Nicaragua closed for good after nearly 40 years in existence. But even under this circumstance, we have journalists working every day to inform the people of Nicaragua and the rest of the world about what is happening in our country. So I received this award also as a recognition for Nicaraguan independent journalism as a whole. Thank you. To all those journalists, old and young, especially to my colleagues in Confidencial, I say, the dictatorship thought by taking away our equipment and newsroom, they will shut us up. They failed. I thank you all for being a constant inspiration for my work. As a cartoonist, I also acknowledge with gratitude the Cabot jury and Columbia University for giving due importance now more than ever to this vital part of journalism, opinion cartooning. It's a genre in danger lately due to the growing problem of authoritarianism and fanaticism around the world, but also due to the myopia of timid editors, intolerant people who hide their own agenda behind a supposed defense of the politically correct and social media mobs. Yet, here we are, cartoonists, struggling with all this and trying to put a smile on our readers' faces and a thought in their heads that could help us to question and improve our reality. So, many thanks to all the people who make my work possible and the people who understand it. You are the best. Thank you. Buenas noches.
Boris Muñoz, please come to the stage. As opinion editor for the New York Times on Espanol almost 4 years ago, Boris Muñoz brought fresh, vibrant, and diverse voices to its pages. His groundbreaking efforts have also resulted in the proliferation of Latin American views in the English language daily, which translates and adapts the opinion pieces from Spanish. He created special series on Cuba, Venezuela, Latin American elections, and even the World Cup, building bridges among the Spanish-speaking readers in the United States and Latin American and English-speaking readers. Today, from his expansive networks throughout the hemisphere, he continues to curate a lively cross-section of opinions ranging from musicians to writers to world leaders and civic activists at the Times. The richness and depth of these editorial pages set a gold standard for opinion writing in Spanish and provided models for a region which is only now beginning to experiment with the genre. We mourn the loss of New York Times in Espanol. It was a great institution, it made a big impact, and I'm sorry that it is gone. A native of Venezuela, Boris brings decades of experience to the work he does at the Times as a prolific reporter, writer, and editor. Boris, for a career of excellence and for furthering inter-American understanding, the trustees of Columbia University are honored to present you with the Mariah Moore's Cabot Gold Medal. Boris will make his acceptance remarks in Spanish. There's an English translation on your seats. Congratulations, Boris.
Buenas noches, distinguidos miembros del jurado. Voy a hablar en la lengua de Cervantes, Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz, Gabriel García Márquez, Alejandra Pizarnik, el Chapulín Colorado, los al menos 10 periodistas asesinados en México este año y los millones de migrantes que en estos momentos buscan cruzar las fronteras de las Américas. Quiero dedicarle este reconocimiento a Bob y Nancy Giles, quienes dirigían la Fundación Nieman de Harvard y nos ofrecieron su generosa amistad cuando mi familia y yo dejamos Venezuela hace 10 años. La medalla que hoy recibo es también para Beatriz Oropesa, Bruno Muñoz y mi fabulosa suegra Robin Urquhart, los mejores compañeros de viaje que un autoexiliado puede tener. Igualmente, quiero dar gracias a Jim Dow, mi jefe en el Departamento de Opinión, quien ha sido un apoyo constante desde mi llegada al New York Times, a Patricia Nieto en México e Isbeth Verde aquí, cómplices en la aventura de crear el mejor reporte de opinión en la región, a mis colegas Dan Wakin, Kelly Alfieri y Peter Catapano, cuya amistad y buenos consejos me han acompañado estos 3 años. También quiero agradecer a mi amiga muy querida, June Ehrlich, un faro para muchos periodistas latinoamericanos que tratan de navegar Harvard University y Estados Unidos en general. Y desde luego, a muchos amigos reunidos aquí esta noche. Pero sé perfectamente que este no es un premio solo para mí. Es un homenaje al equipo que durante 3 años y 7 meses trabajó en The New York Times en español para elevar la calidad del periodismo en nuestra lengua. Y junto a ellos, una enorme red de colaboradores. Lo recibo en su nombre con humildad y la esperanza en alto. En momentos en que América Latina está asediada por el populismo, los caudillos autocráticos de izquierda y derecha, la destrucción ambiental, el crimen organizado y un presidente en los Estados Unidos con políticas muy agresivas para detener la inmigración latinoamericana, es un momento, este es el momento. En un momento así, el público del New York Times en español, al norte y sur del Río Grande, merecía una respuesta en sintonía con los tiempos que corren y una mayor visión de futuro. En el mundo intensamente polarizado en el que vivimos, donde la democracia misma está bajo constante amenaza, La noción de que el periodismo puede cortar a través del ruido no debe ser una mera consigna. Y no lo debe ser porque, como dijo Nicanor Parra, el poeta sabio, la democracia hoy no es un simple sistema político, es la posibilidad de salvar el planeta. Sin democracia no se salva nada, dijo Parra. Pero para que la democracia sobreviva en estos tiempos oscuros, las organizaciones periodísticas deben comprometerse a fondo a defender la esfera pública y la civilidad. Hay en América Latina, España y Estados Unidos un gran público hispanohablante sediento de un periodismo riguroso e inteligente de escala regional que lo ayude a hacer sentido del presente. Me atrevo a decir que ese público está dispuesto a apoyar el periodismo de calidad cuando las líneas editoriales son capaces de aportar un valor mayor al entendimiento de sus entornos e intereses personales. Este hecho es una enorme oportunidad para quien hoy tenga ambición, visión y espíritu emprendedor para llevarla adelante. Los hispanohablantes, sobre todo de América, no estamos condenados a vivir aislados de nosotros mismos y del mundo. Somos la región más urbanizada del planeta y eso debe empujarnos a ser más cosmopolitas. Tampoco dependemos de miradas foráneas que quisieran explicarnos por qué somos como somos y podemos por fin superar nuestra soledad histórica, las enormes distancias culturales y geográficas que nos separaban de la modernidad y la democracia. Pero para ello necesitamos un periodismo del más alto estándar que nos ayude a contar, interpretar y debatir con amplitud e independencia nuestra desaforada realidad con nuestra propia sensibilidad y con la música y los acentos de nuestra lengua. El periodismo actual en español es el mejor que se ha hecho en la historia. Cuenta con una nueva generación de medios, Armando.info, Quinto Elemento Lab, El Faro, La Silla Vacía, entre muchos, y con periodistas y opinadores de enorme talento, fogueados en las más desafiantes condiciones: la censura, las noticias falsas, el hostigamiento, la persecución y las amenazas de gobiernos, empresas corruptas y el crimen organizado. El momento está maduro para el surgimiento de organizaciones mediáticas independientes con una mirada y ambición regional. Y los nuevos medios y redes de periodistas y pensadores son la clave para desarrollarlos. Los periodistas y escritores de opinión tenemos frente a nosotros dos opciones claras: continuar atados a fórmulas que ya dieron lo mejor de sí o apostar por nuevas oportunidades, lo que implica vincularse y colaborar más activamente entre sí mediante alianzas y plataformas editoriales que ayuden a ampliar el alcance de sus perspectivas. No parece una elección muy difícil. La tenemos frente a nosotros. Muchas gracias.
Marcela Turati, please come to the stage. Marcela, as many of you know, is a force in Mexican journalism, brave, determined, talented. She covers drug-related violence, primarily from the victim's perspective, one of the most important and most dangerous jobs in Mexican journalism. She explores how violence and impunity affect Mexican society, and she documents the government's accountability, responsibility, complicity in this violence over such a long period of time. After she investigated the 2010 mass execution of 72 mostly Central American migrants by drug and human traffickers, she repeatedly returned to that story after other reporters had moved on, documenting the victims' identities, pursuing those responsible, and eventually exposing a vast number of mass graves hidden in the Mexican countryside. Marcela, for your courage, for your commitment, and for your promotion of better inter-American understanding through journalism and investigative reporting, the trustees of Columbia University are honored to present you the Mariah Moores Cabot Gold Medal. Congratulations. Marcela will also Marcela will also speak in Spanish, and you have her remarks in translation on your chairs.
Gracias. Buenas noches. Me siento muy honrada de ser parte de la historia de este premio al que le tengo tanto cariño, porque lo ha recibido un linaje de periodistas que admiro y han sido mi inspiración. Agradezco a los miembros del board, algunos como Jun, cómplices en el camino, a la Escuela de Periodismo de Columbia y a la familia Cabot. Este reconocimiento sé que no es solo para mí, es también para la generación de periodistas que a partir del año 2006, inesperadamente, nos descubrimos en medio de un fuego cruzado, cuando se decidió una fallida política de seguridad que fue llamada Guerra contra las Drogas, y decidimos cubrir los impactos que ha dejado en millones de vidas que han sido afectadas. Esa decisión cambió nuestras vidas, nuestra identidad y nuestra manera de entender y de hacer periodismo. Yo era una periodista siempre inquieta por capacitarme y por organizar talleres para todos, que cubría las regiones más pobres del país y a la que le daba pena preguntar en voz alta en conferencias de prensa. De pronto me fueron invitando a hablar y a veces forzándome a mí misma. Estos años he ido repitiendo las mismas palabras, que en México existe una guerra no reconocida, que millones son las víctimas, que muchos periodistas nos convertimos en corresponsales de guerra sin salir de nuestro país, que México es el país más peligroso para ejercer el periodismo y donde los silenciadores tienen la impunidad garantizada. No sé cuándo empezó a mutar mi identidad, si fue al dimensionar que las desapariciones de personas eran sistemáticas y masivas. Tenemos 40,000 personas desaparecidas, más desde hace 12 años. O si fue cuando vi una pila de cuerpos de migrantes recién exhumados de una fosa clandestina. O si fue cuando unas psicólogas me invitaron a los talleres de duelo que dan a niños huérfanos. O al enterarme de que un periodista que conocía fue asesinado. O quizás fue cuando decidí, con otras mujeres periodistas, a organizarnos para cuidarnos entre todas y bajo el mismo abrazo cuidar a otros. Y dejar de lado la neutralidad para salir a las calles a protestar para poner fin a la impunidad asesina. Más de una década después, me detengo, miro hacia atrás y noto el peso de la ausencia de más de 140 periodistas muertos o desaparecidos. Sus crímenes siguen impunes, pero también veo a mi alrededor y siento que a pesar de tanta muerte, la prensa mexicana no murió, sigue de pie y sigue viva. No es retórica, es difícil no notarlo. Ahí donde la violencia se ha ensañado, donde silenciaron a un colega de respeto, hubo periodistas que se alzaron y se organizaron para entrenarse juntos y aprender a trabajar de manera colectiva para protegerse entre todos, para defender el derecho a informar y a ser informado y para hacer investigaciones de temas prohibidos. Es lo que vi que ocurrió después de que mataron al primer periodista que conocí, Armando Rodríguez el Choco, el que documentaba las muertes en Ciudad Juárez, y como se ha venido repitiendo. Los periodistas se organizan en contra de que la mancha del silencio se siga extendiendo. Pienso en Veracruz, la tierra donde fue asesinada Regina Martínez, la valiente corresponsal de la revista Proceso, donde publico. Un año después de su asesinato, varios periodistas de la Ciudad de México acudimos para no dejar pasar y conmemorar su aniversario. Fuimos al cementerio y nos dimos cuenta que nadie había vuelto a su tumba, que tenía encima las mismas flores, ya marchitas y secas, con la que la habían enterrado. Con su asesinato, los perpetradores lograron el terror que querían, pero sus amigos agarraron fuerzas, empezaron a limpiar su tumba, empezaron a marchar en las plazas una y muchas veces, a pesar de que seguían matando periodistas, y siguieron haciendo un periodismo valiente como el que ella hacía. Y esta historia se repite en una suma de gestos casi hormigas, pero con la potencia que tiene lo simbólico, como lo ha sido salir a las calles con las fotos de quienes nos faltan, armar escándalos contra gobiernos asesinos, organizar subastas para ayudar a periodistas que han tenido que ser obligados a salir de su tierra, crear cadenas de solidaridad para sacar a colegas en riesgo, visitar lugares donde periodistas quedaron traumatizados y comenzar juntos a ponerle nombre a los hechos y a mencionar a los perpetradores, organizar seminarios de periodismo, de investigación, ahí donde mataron a la mejor investigadora, para entre todos decir que no se silencia la verdad matando a periodistas. Este es el poder de los gestos simbólicos hechos por los nadies, por los de a pie, muchas veces por puras mujeres. En esta tragedia se fundaron colectivos que defienden la libertad de expresión, medios digitales para informar a la gente, círculos de confianza para monitorearnos entre todos y darnos cuenta si todos estamos a salvo cuando salimos a alguna cobertura, centrales de alerta para actuar en caso de riesgo, o grupos de investigación colectiva para echar luz a los lugares donde la vida no es respetada, donde quieren que los crímenes permanezcan ocultos. Cuando escribía estas palabras, me venían a la mente esta canción latinoamericana que dice: tantas veces me mataron, tantas veces me morí, sin embargo estoy aquí resucitando para seguir cantando. Esto es lo que ha pasado. Una veterana periodista me decía hace unos días que le sorprendía esta revolución en el periodismo y que le recordaba la sabiduría de la naturaleza cuando se desarrollan habilidades asombrosas para burlar o escapar de los depredadores. Así aprendimos en México a trabajar en colectivo como una forma de evolución ante la violencia y ante las amenazas. Nos preguntan muchas veces si somos periodistas o si ya somos militantes, que qué somos. Y yo pienso que donde el periodismo no funciona, la vida está en riesgo. Están asesinando, están desapareciendo personas, están obligando a huir pueblos enteros. La lucha contra el silencio es una lucha por la vida y nos toca a los periodistas. Mi historia y la historia de muchos está cruzada por estos asesinatos de periodistas a los que conocí y admiro, como El Choco, Regina Martínez, Rubén Espirosa, Miroslava Bridge o Javier Valdés, nuestro amigo, cronista, que nos enseñó a muchos a cubrir la vida bajo el narco. A todos ellos y a otros que hubiera querido conocer, los honro y los respeto. De todos ellos puedo decir que no murieron cuando los enterraron, porque no los enterramos, los sembramos. Yo no soy protagonista única de esta historia escrita a muchas manos y en distintas etapas. A veces me ha tocado liderarla, otras dar ideas, otras llevar el café o el mezcal o armar el festejo, y otras me ha tocado tomar pausas o que me carguen a mí y buscar mi relevo. Esta historia de la prensa mexicana no está inacabada. Hemos cometido errores, seguimos con muchas dudas, no nos hemos articulado como hubiéramos querido, pero igual me siento orgullosa de formar parte de esta generación que respondió a las circunstancias que enfrentaba, que sabe que el silencio no es opción, que está consciente de que nuestras notas diarias forman una parte de Comisión de la Verdad en tiempo real, que van a servir para el futuro, cuando haya justicia, cuando la justicia la hagamos posible. Gracias a quienes han sido nuestros cómplices internacionales. Gracias a las familias que me han permitido tocar su dolor y seguir su búsqueda de sus familiares desaparecidos. Quiero dar las gracias a las distintas colectivas a las que pertenezco, que me enseñan a caminar en equipo. Gracias a mi familia, a mi papá, a mi mamá, a mis hermanos, a mis amigos que han sido soporte. Gracias porque el premio Cabot es un impulso para no olvidar que con nuestro oficio, consignando lo que pasa, estamos conservando memoria, oponiéndonos a la muerte y sembrando futuro. Gracias.
Congratulations to all of our winners tonight. Could I please ask that the 2019 winners come up onto the stage for one last photo?